We now take you live to Davos in Switzerland, where global leaders are gathered for the World Economic Forum. And our reporter is Liabo Setho, and she's there to tell us more about this report. Liabo, can you expatiate on what it entails?
Good afternoon, Colin. Yes, the International Monetary Fund has just held a media briefing here at the Media Village at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Of course, the SABC is covering, as always, the World Economic Forum here in Davos. And it seems that the International Monetary Fund has cut its growth forecast for South Africa yet again to 0.8%. Previously, it was 1.1%, but still, I think, considerably higher than 0. From what the World Bank had actually indicated or forecast. And the IMF economists, both of them flagging the issue of electricity supply constraints, saying that in fact the demand and supply of South Africa is actually at risk, particularly because of the electricity issue. They're saying that the slow reforms are also a cause for concern for South Africa. They have also slashed the forecast downwards for 2021 as well, from 1.4% previously to 1% in 2021. So they have put there that the issue with the electricity challenges is really a big one, and it needs to be looked at. And they also forecast that the public spending may also be impacted somewhat. This obviously will put a dent in making sure that economic growth, grows at a pace that is needed. Other economists back home have said that we would need economic growth of at least 5 to 8% for us to start seeing jobs happening. I'm not sure whether in Johannesburg we've already received the clip of the two economists who have actually mentioned the issue of, I believe we have that clip, and I will link you to that clip of the two economists the IMF economists who have actually spoken about the growth forecast and outlook for South Africa. Let's take a listen.
Our numbers for South Africa are 0.4% for 2019, 0.8% for 2020, and 1% for 2021. These growth rates are lower than the population growth rate in South Africa. So in terms of per capita terms, these are, these are the numbers we would hope would be much better. The growth would be much higher than this. In the case of South Africa, there is still elevated policy uncertainty, tied to the slow pace of structural reforms, and that has been weighing on growth. And because there's now limited fiscal space, public spending is now is weaker than it could have been, and these factors are having an impact. Would you like to add anything?
I think one more obstacle to growth are really these supply bottlenecks. I think the most obvious one is the frequent power outages. Those take a really heavy toll on aggregate supply. So you have both an impact on real activity, and you have the financial woes of Eskom weighing on the fisc, on the budget, and hence curtailing room for other productive public spending. So it's essential to get, the public enterprise reform and to be effective and to improve the functioning of key ones like Eskom. That has been one clear factor at play during 2019.
Colin, obviously, I think the economists, they have explained it much better than I have. But of course, what they're saying, Colin, is not entirely new, because Team South Africa itself, whom some of them are still on their way here, being led by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, did mention and concede to the issue that structural reforms have been slow, and that they are expecting some of the international investors to ask about these structural reforms and the pace of it, the slow pace of it. They are also expecting that questions around Eskom and power supply are actually going to be asked, and therefore Titomboweni last week at his pre-briefing, the pre-World Economic Forum briefing, saying that we are expecting this and we shouldn't lie, but we are doing something, making reference, of course, to the split 3 ways of Eskom is one of the reforms that they are doing in order to ease issues that have to do with supply constraints, and of course the issue of muted public spending or fiscal spending coming in there. So these are the kind of comments that have come out of the International Monetary Fund concerning South Africa. Like I say, not entirely new, but something that indeed the government will need to put some spectacles and look into, perhaps with much more urgency.
All right, Liabo, thank you very much for putting your finger on the pulse, and I know that you will be continuing to giving us rolling coverage of what's happening at the World Economic Forum. And in a moment, President Cyril Ramaphosa will be wrapping up the NEC Lekgotla. So I wish I could continue with this discussion, but we will hook up with you in our programs that are forthcoming.